What up, all my fight fans? So we had some news breakdown. We had some news that pretty much happened over the Jake Paul and Nate Diaz fight announcement, August 4th in Dallas, Texas. Guys, I can't wait for that. We already knew this was a fight that's going to potentially be happening. There's been a lot of here things, little recent developments that I was able to come up with and see and look up and whatnot. So I'm definitely here to break some of this down. First of all, Jake Paul turns out to be a favor over Nate Diaz. I could kind of see that only due to the fact that Nate Diaz has not really had a boxing match. I want to say this is actually Nate Diaz's boxing debut. But we already know Nate Diaz has always been a boxer his whole life. He's always used his hands. His first go to, his bread and butter of when he was in the MMA world was boxing. He always used his hands. He's always been a great boxer, just like his brother. And not just that, he also trained with high level boxers. I made previous videos regarding this. He actually trained with the Olympic gold medalist, with the super middleweight and light heavyweight champion of the world, Andre Ward. The guy is no punk when it comes to boxing. We've seen that. We've seen him what he was able to do and hurt guys like a Conor McGregor, like a Michael Johnson, like a Donald Cerrone. All these other guys, even some of the guys like Anthony Pettis, is some guys that actually had some really great hands. We saw he was able to do in that last minute against Leon Edwards. He was pretty much able to rock the now welterweight champion of the world. Yeah, I know what you guys are saying. He got dominated 100%. We're not talking about like how well he did in the fight. We're just saying that the guy has hands and he's always had hands. So it's definitely going to be very interesting. But at the end of the day, Jake Paul has fought against other boxers. Well, one boxer, Tommy Fury, which he did lose, but he has a little bit more experience. Guys like Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley twice, and Anderson Silva. So you can give him just a little bit of the edge when it comes to like the power, the speed. You definitely want to give that to Jake Paul because we've seen what he was able to do to guys like Ben Askren, again, like Tyron Woodley in that second fight, and he was even able to put Anderson Silva down. Yes, Anderson Silva was past his prime, but still, nonetheless, I'm sure it's not that easy. Anderson Silva rarely got rocked and put down in the UFC, so it's still pretty much a pretty good accomplishment, nonetheless. But of course, Nate Diaz, I don't see it being too big of a disadvantage, or excuse me, a too big of a favor for Jake Paul because Nate Diaz is still a high level. This is not someone that was once a wrestler. This is not someone that was once a grappler. Yes, he can grapple. Yes, he is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, excuse me. But his level of boxing is definitely far, far exceeding some of the other guys that he has fought. Maybe Anderson Silva not so much, but Nate Diaz is much younger, about 10 years younger than Anderson Silva. So that says a lot as well. So you definitely got to wonder and like maybe think twice whether or not that Jake Paul should be a big, big favorite because Nate Diaz, he has cardio. He has more cardio than it could last. And I believe this is going to be an 8 round fight. I kind of wish it was going to be a 10, maybe even a 12 round fight for Jake Paul. It'll be a kind of good way to get himself in the clear and get himself like more used to that because, he's always been talks about fighting Canelo. Like Canelo ain't going to agree to no 8 rounds. Canelo's going to go down the whole distance. Canelo's going to go to those championship rounds, 10, 11, 12. So that's something that maybe Jake Paul would want to start doing. But this is something that Nate Diaz probably should have asked for because from what I am hearing, that Nate Diaz is also a 50-50 partnership with Jake Paul regarding this fight. They're co-promoting it together. They're co-sponsoring together. They're doing everything together. This is all 50-50, 100% down the line, which it should be because, Jake Paul, regardless of whether you like him or not, he's a star. And Nate Diaz, of course, he's a megastar. So, yes, the pot should be shared between them both. But as far as like I said, the odds go, yeah, you could definitely see why it would be a little bit in Jake Paul's favor, but not so much because again, Nate Diaz can box. Nate Diaz does have hands. Nate Diaz has cardio for days. So, it might favor Jake Paul a little bit, being the fact that it's an 8 round fight, but yet to be seen. But then also there's all other things that have been popping up too, like Jake Paul, or excuse me, Nate Diaz has been talking like how he does want to fight Jake Paul, which is going to get, and how after he beats Jake Paul, which his words, he's going to go back to the MMA world and go after Conor and go after that belt. That's basically what he wants to do. He wants to get that Conor rematch, and that Conor rematch is never going away. They're both one apiece. They both fought back in 2000, I want to say 16. 2016. They both had some great fights. That second fight was very memorable, and this third fight should happen. We can't let this go. We cannot let this third fight get away from us, guys. This is one hell of a fight that we definitely got to see. So I can see that potentially happen. Dana White and Nate Diaz ended on good terms. It's not like they pretty much left on bad terms, on bad, vibes or anything like that. They pretty much squashed whatever beef they kind of had. We already know that the way UFC was trying to do Nate Diaz in his last fight, they were trying to give him Hamzat Chimaev, but unfortunately that did not fall through. He ended up fighting Tony Ferguson, so everything kind of worked out for the UFC and the fans. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's still all good over there, and I believe that even Dana White has said that, hey, excuse me, Nate Diaz can always come back. Always come back, and I'm sure that Nate Diaz is going to do that as well. He just wants to go collect a bag. He wants to make some money, and I'm guaranteed he's going to make a lot of money fighting Jake Paul. Hell, I honestly don't feel like he should do one fight. If he actually beats Jake Paul, or possibly it's a back and forth war where he could have got the decision, do a rematch and get another bag. Get another bag. He's gonna make at least $5 to $10 million, maybe more, give or take. Who knows? In this one fight alone, he could do two fights and he could be making 20, almost $30 million. Good God, guys! I mean, come on. This is what the stars need to do in the MMA world. If you're a big star and you got hands and you can box, go out there and box. Go out there and do it, because then you see you still got Francis Ngannou, who's potentially getting a matchup. We don't know. Hopefully it comes soon. We never know. But at the end of the day, there's been a lot of speculation that it might happen. But look at Nate Diaz. I really hope he does make a lot of money, because that's what every fighter needs to do. They need to make a lot of money. So yeah, that's some interesting news too. And what's also funny and interesting is when Nate Diaz came out and said, "Hey, I wanted to box Canelo, but since the Canelo is not at this moment," I'm pretty much paraphrasing here. Yeah, I'm not really saying what Nate Diaz said, but yeah, he wanted to box Canelo first, and obviously Canelo wasn't available, and he wants to go after Jake since Jake is the next biggest star. I don't think Canelo would ever do that. Canelo, he's all about legacy. He's all about championships. He's all about, pretty much proving that he is the very best boxer. I don't see him being involved in any of these star matchups, at the end of the day. I don't see him being like one of these, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do one of these, like, Floyd Mayweather versus Conor matchups. That's just something I don't see Canelo doing. I really don't see that potentially happening. Could it be with somebody else, like maybe Nate Diaz versus like a David Benavidez, or even a Jose Benavidez, or something to that nature? I can see that potentially happening. I can see one of those guys actually trying to get that money and trying to get that, that pay and whatnot. So I could definitely see that a potential matchup. But as far as Canelo, I don't necessarily see it. I don't see it being a possibility, but you never know. You never know. Well, there, guys, there's a little updates I want to give you regarding this whole Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul fight news. It's going to be a lot more coming up. I'm sure the press conferences is going to be coming up soon. There's going to be a lot more stuff that we're going to talk about regarding this. So stay tuned, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.